Good evening and welcome to another edition of Mental Health Mondays brought to you by Saving Grace Community Church and Grace House of Cincinnati. Joining me tonight, as usual, is our co-host. We are so happy once again to see him, Dr. Quentin Moss, founder and CEO and Chief Medical Officer of Modern Psychiatry. Good evening.
Hey, good evening, brother. Good to be here.
Glad to see you. Glad to see you. It's been a couple of weeks, but you still look the same.
Yeah, about a little bit. Yeah, just about a little bit.
Well, tonight is really about service. We are always lauding and applauding the work and the efforts and sometimes heroism of first responders. And specifically tonight, a lot of police officers get ink, get press, get recognition, but unfortunately, not a lot of firefighters, in terms of what they have to deal with, is brought to light. And so we're excited tonight to have one of Cincinnati Fire Department's finest, Craig Scruggs. Good evening.
Hey, how you doing, Pastor?
I'm doing well, doing well.
What's going on, Doc?
Hey, what's up, sir?
Your job is a very stressful job, and it's one with many highs, many lows. You have to deal with people who are you've never met before, and you are part of a life of some very traumatic events. And so I believe it takes a special person to be a firefighter because not only do you fight fires, but you are a part of some life-saving efforts. And so when many people always say when those of us are running away from fires, you guys are running to fires.
Yes, sir.
And you're putting yourself in harm's way. So, Craig, tell me a little bit. How long have you been a member of the Cincinnati Fire Department?
This is year number 7 for me.
Wow.
7,
Wow.
Yeah, it went by fast. Yeah.
Wow. What led you to decide to be a firefighter? What was it about being a firefighter that caught your attention? It drew. Then you said, "That's what I want to be."
So backstory.
Mhm.
I used to be a club bouncer.
Okay.
All over the city.
That's kind of, you're about 6'3",
Yeah.
240. I can see that. Go ahead.
So I was a club bouncer. Kenyatta Smith, DJ Bader. He from the time I graduated high school, which was 2007, on up to 2012, till I finally was taking the test. He every night I came to the club, he would be on me like, "Well, you gonna come take the test?" I'm like, "Man, I ain't about to be no fire. I ain't running no fires, man. I think you crazy? No, that ain't me. Nope. I ain't doing it. Nope. So, I just every time he sing, he always throw it in there. Come take the test, man. I'm like, I'm not doing Vader. I'm not doing it, man. No, it's not me. I'm good. I'm cool. I'm good where I'm at. I'm good. So finally, 2012, man, I just felt like I felt like there was no room for growth in the company I was working for, and man, I kind of looked into it, just read up on some stuff, really just brushed up on some info on being a firefighter or whatever or whatnot, and I was like, man, it's pretty cool, man. It seemed like a pretty cool job. All right, cool, whatever. But then I looked at the police as well. So I was like, man, I don't know, man. All right. So I took the police test, and I told Vader, I came in the night at the club, and I told Vader, I said, hey, man, I'm going to take the test. All right, cool. Test July 1st, da-da-da. I'm like, all right, cool. But I am taking the police test, too. He's like, all right, man, cool, whatever. Took it, passed out of 5,000 people. I was in the top 120.
Wow.
And that's all she wrote. That's
Wow.
it.
Wow.
Yep.
And you've been a public servant ever since.
I have, and it's been very, 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 very rewarding job. It has its pros and cons, but a lot more pros than it is cons. I will say that.
I haven't done some ride-alongs, and for transparency, I'm one of 4 chaplains of the Cincinnati Fire Department. But I've done some ride-alongs. When the alarm sounds and you get that notice, uh, regardless if it is a false alarm or whatever, riding on a truck, there is a apparent adrenaline rush that when I see you guys get your gear on, because you don't know if this is real or not, you don't know if you're coming back or not. I see the adrenaline in you guys pumping, and you guys are rolling. You are rolling. There was a guy on the 8s I rode one time. I forget his first name was Reggie, and I don't know if he's retired now, but we were coming down Langdon Farm. And he got in that curb near the golf course. And I mean, we were all in the truck, and he was just driving. And, but everyone was really hyped, and I've ridden with, I think is it the 46? Who's in there? Who's on Rockdale? 40.
Rockdale is the 32s.
Yeah, it's so over there near Rockdale. So I've ridden with them, and in both instances, I remember riding with those guys, and I just remember just the intensity. I mean, just the focus, just like,
get serious.
This might be it. We're not assuming it's a false alarm. We're assuming this is the real thing, and let's go. And if anyone has ever called 911, and if you think a little bit that the firefighters are not trying to get there, you got another thing coming. Will probably help if you got out the way, but just really, just seeing how intense you were. So in 7 years, have you ever had to arrive at the scene for actual fire?
Yes, several.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about that, in terms of what you can, about that. Were there injuries or loss of life?
I've made it all across the board. I've had loss of life. I've made severe injuries. It's really what I can speak on. It takes a toll on you. I'll say this. I'm good with adults. It sounds weird. I have compassion for all beings of life. But when it comes to adults and injuries, I'm okay. The thing that gets me is kids.
Right.
Going to a fire and seeing a child, at their worst moment, they're scared. They don't, we got on these big masks and these big old tanks and stuff, and they're scared to even come to us. And that does something to me, man. I've never in my 7 years, man, I still cannot go to a scene and see a kid and not have that just real compassion. I'm like, man, I got little brothers, I got nieces, I got nephews, this is. So we're doing our best to get there on time. Like you said, it's best you just get out of our way. It's very intense going to fires. And like you said, we don't know if it's a false alarm. We don't know if it's we don't know if it's a real thing until we actually get there. So it's really intense. It's really intense for those going to those scenes. But like I said, man, kids are the ones that get me, man. I have a hard time, man, dealing with the scenes that I come to with kids, man. That really still gets me, man. But I show the same compassion for everybody, always.
How do you process that? How would you process that when you get back? I mean, for instance, let me just share with you. I know I'm the same way. When I have to do, and in my ministry, do a funeral, preside, eulogize a child, I'm done for the rest of the day. I get it. When I do any funerals, to be truthful with you, I'm kind of zapped. But especially those that I've had to do for children. Is that so? I know. What's one of your coping mechanisms? How do you debrief?
Same. I'm done for the rest of the day. I just go. I'm something like that. I'm usually, I go by myself. I'll be in our TV room by myself, or I'll go up in my bunk and, go read or something like that. Try and look at something funny on YouTube or something like that, just to get that just that funk off me. Because it's like, you don't want to see that, man. It's just it's what I signed up for. It's what I signed up for. That is my career. That's my job. That's what I have to do. I know that's what it comes with, but yet and still, I still have to find a way to, like you said, decompress. So that's what I do. I go try and find something funny on YouTube or Kevin Hart, Eddie Murphy, something like that, just to try and cheer me up, because it's really hard. It's really hard. It's really, really hard.
Dr. Moss, when you find someone like Craig and others who are first responders and they're dealing with those wide range of emotions, and they have to encounter things that yes, they signed up for, but perhaps never you sign up for, but when it happens before, you're like, wow. How can first responders deal with this stress? Because it's trauma. It's a traumatic event to go to a scene where a child dies. What are some coping mechanisms? How do you cope with that as a first responder? What would you recommend to a person like Craig?
Again, thanks for your service, man, and all that you do and all that you have to endure and face. But whether it's child or adult, it is reoccurring trauma, and our brains and our bodies respond to it, even if we're not aware that they're responding to it. Yeah, so finding ways to kind of debrief, kind of redirect our thoughts, cognitive reframing, right? Trying to get something else to think about, that's all helpful. But what's also helpful is finding a safe place to be able to have non-judgmental discussions.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes that means getting around your peers that you feel safe with and being able to freely talk about it. Now this is an awesome man that we have on the show tonight. Great stature, doing some very courageous things, but he's also human. So he has emotions, and his brain receives things that sometimes are very unpleasant, tragic, and unfortunately probably sees a great deal of carnage. So being able to be around other people and process that is the most helpful thing.
You hit on something that's critical, because those of us who are in a serving profession or helping profession, oftentimes people don't realize that we have emotions too. And though we are, I'm sure first responders like Craig always try to display and work and show and demonstrate the utmost and highest level of professionalism, there are scenes and situations probably that frustrate you. I'm sure, Craig, when you roll up to someone who's out on meth, who's overdosed, I'm sure that affects you, right?
It's frustrating, to say the least. It's definitely frustrating, to say the least, especially when kids are involved. Especially when kids are involved. Those I can't even begin to tell you the amount of frustration and anger and every other word across the board that you can think of that I feel when I come to scenes like that. And you overdose, you got kids in the other room, or you overdose and your kids in the car. It's very frustrating. Yeah, very frustrating.
And I would imagine that not all the time you're received when you come. There have been stories about firefighters being shot at. I do recall going on a run with one of the departments in which someone was tased by the police, and they asked for medical assistance, and I rode with them to the scene. I remember that quite vividly, down on Dayton Street, and there were this is before the real renovations, they were a crowd of about 300 to 400. And the firefighter said to me, "Well, Chaplain, you may want to stay in the truck." I said, "No problem." And I'm good. I'll be right here. But they have to give care at the risk, of getting hurt or injury.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
what level of focus is needed for that, Craig?
Extreme amount of focus. Extreme amount of focus, especially when dealing with crowds. If it's usually a crowd, man, we're trying to get out of there. So we're usually, load them up, especially like an angry crowd. Like, shootings are the worst. You got emotions running high. They want you to get, take care of their loved ones. They're screaming, yelling, save him. It's not. Usually, we're trying to remove that object from the scene, work them on the way to the hospital, and just getting away from that environment, so we don't have to even worry about that. Worry about our safety, because our safety is first. Yeah, we want to save lives, but we can't save lives if our lives are in danger.
Amongst your coworkers, do you have people that started with you that are no longer with you, in terms of they just quit?
Can you say that again? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Do you know of people that were in your recruitment class that are no longer firefighters because they just burnt out?
I can't say that they were burnt out per se. Yeah, actually, yeah, I can't say that. We had a guy recently in particular that was burned out, and he left, went to a smaller department that he didn't really didn't deal with a lot of stuff that we deal with. Suburbia. He went to the suburbs, like not the inner city. A lot of different. They get some of the same stuff that we get, but not as much and not as serious, I should say. So yeah, he was burned out and he left. We had another guy who was burned out. So three people left out of my class. We were a class of 51. And 3 people left so far.
Well, whenever it brings up a great point, Dr. Moss. What would you say, and what would be some conversations, or what would your conversations be like with someone who showed up to your office who may be experiencing burnout?
Trying to assess their risk for PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder. There's a high correlation of that with first responders. We've talked about trauma. There's this whole thing of reoccurring trauma that people experience. And those are cumulative. They're cumulative in what they do to our brain, but also to our bodies. Elevated cortisol levels associated with heart disease, obesity, premature death. So these risk factors are real. So what can we do to remove them from the traumas? If we can get some therapy started, that would be helpful in helping with some cognitive reframing and debriefing from the trauma. But also for some people, medications are indicated to be able to help the brain to function in a healthier way, to hopefully get them to have some control over their symptoms.
Yeah, because there are there's 1,100,000 career and volunteer firefighters in our country. And all of them, depending upon the size of the department, depending upon which house they are in a municipality, they have to deal with a lot of trauma, but self-care is critical. And so the Surgeon General, in a 2019 call to action for suicide reported that some occupations are higher risk for suicide than others. And one of those occupations was first responders. And so researchers reveal that 80% of firefighters experience symptoms of mental health issues, have mental health issues. So self-care becomes imperative if you're going to help other people. And just the stress of how it affects relationships. The divorce rate for firefighters are firefighters who have been married is 14.1%. So it affects marriages, relationships, your whole being. So what are some of your other coping mechanisms? What have you implemented, Craig, personally?
Vacation. Vacation. I will hop on a flight on my Kelly week and they heartbeat.
Mm-hmm. Explain to some of our viewers. Tell us about your schedules, because some who may not know may think you work every day 9 to 5. Explain a firefighter schedule. Explain what a Kelly day is.
A lot of my friends are jealous of my schedule. Just know that. I get flack all the time about my schedule. We work 24 on. We're off 48, and we get we get 5 days straight every 3 weeks off.
Mm-hmm.
So I work about 9 days a month, something like that. 9 to 10 days a month.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've got time to really.
Yes.
And it's interesting because some firefighters work for multiple departments.
Oh yeah.
Which I was at a restaurant. I saw someone from Cincinnati Fire, and I said, "I know you work for them as well." And I know others work for landscaping companies and other stores on their time.
Oh yeah.
To do that. So, what's one of your favorite vacation destinations?
Atlanta. Atlanta. I love Atlanta. I love the
Atlanta
food.
is a spot.
I love the entertainment. I love the just the sights, the Southern hospitality.
Mm-hmm.
I love Atlanta. Yeah, people say all the time, "Oh, people from Cincinnati always go to Atlanta." Yeah, so what? I don't care. I love it down there.
Say I'm one of them.
Love it down there. I love it down there. It's definitely one of my favorite destinations. But to hit on another thing to do, coping mechanism. I bowl. I'm a bowler.
Okay.
I bowl a lot. A lot. So bowling definitely takes my mind off of what I see at work, what I do for a living or whatever, whatnot. That's definitely another thing that I do is bowl. So bowling and vacation are my top two.
Do you ever struggle, Dr. Moss, he mentioned post-traumatic stress disorder? Are there times where you just can't turn off your brain, or there is a memory, there is an experience from the previous 24 for the next 48 that you struggle to get out of your mind?
Let me see. I haven't had any that have really like. Oh, yeah, I have. My little cousin.
Mm-hmm.
I made one of my little cousins in the fire.
Wow.
Yeah, that stuck with me.
Wow.
That stuck with me for a little bit. So it's two of my little cousins. I don't know about the HIPAA or whatnot. So I don't want to say the locations or whatnot. Mm-hmm. But I made two of my little cousins. One deceased, and the other it took her a long time to recover, but she ended up recovering. But my other little cousin didn't make it. Wow. That stuck with me for a little bit. Yeah, that was one of the ones that I couldn't shake this and that period. It stuck with me for a little minute. But I'm in therapy. So I talked to my therapist about it, and talking to her helped a great amount. So that was one of the stories that sticks out that I could say stuck with me.
Well, thanks for sharing that again, because we count you again as being heroes, but we don't understand that you're human.
Correct.
And that's a great tribute. Do you find that other firefighters are feel encouraged to seek help if they're struggling?
I don't try and push it on them because the firefighter mentality. Everybody everybody try to be macho man and all. No, we're good. I'm cool. But I am an advocate for therapy. I tell cats like, hey man, I know I'm not medically trained, So of course I can listen to you, but
Mm-hmm.
I really don't know the right words to say.
Mm-hmm.
I will go to a therapist to go talk about that, man. Get that
Mm-hmm.
off your chest, get a different,
Mm-hmm.
get just a different perspective from somebody. They'll have you look at it in a different light, and it's really for me. It's refreshing. Sit
Mm-hmm.
down and talking to my therapist, and I could just be like, man,
Right.
Miss so and so,
Right.
man, I da 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 da,
Right.
da 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 da, this and that. And I don't know how to feel, and I just feel
Mm-hmm.
this way and this way and da 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 da. By the time I'm leaving out of that session, I'm like,
Yeah.
cool,
Yeah.
cool, all right, I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't try, like I said, I don't try and push it. I don't try and push it on the guys. But
Mm-hmm.
I mention it, and if they take it, they do. They don't, then hey, I did my part with, at least saying something about it.
Mm-hmm. Because there is something years ago, there was something called a book called The Wounded Healer. And so when you're trying to give care to people, and when you're trying to bandage people up physically and you're bleeding emotionally, it's a struggle and a balance to do that.
Mm-hmm.
To do that. Dr. Moss?
Yeah, I just commend them for having a disclosure to talk about therapy. When we think about professional athletes and what happens to their bodies, week in and week out, they go to trainers. Every Monday and Tuesday, they get themselves worked on, they get their muscles right. And for those, who go into circumstances like yours, where your mind is exposed to such pain, it benefits you in longevity of being able to do this, to have your own trainer, who can help you to decompress, to get your mind right, so that you can continue to do the work that you do with all the exposures that you have. So I commend you, and I think that the profession would do better to continue to advocate for folks to be proactive and having therapy.
Wow. So again, some firefighters go to work and don't come home. Here's one of the more tragic stories from a couple years ago.
It marks 14 years since the death of Cincinnati firefighter Oscar Armstrong, who was killed in a house fire in Bond Hill. Not on Your Side's Kristen Swilley spoke to a district chief about how that death has changed the way fires are fought.
8:52 a.m., March 21st, 2003. This home on Laidlaw Avenue goes up in flames and firefighters respond, including Engine 9's own Oscar Armstrong III. He was killed in what's called a flashover, the first line-of-duty death at the time in more than 20 years. And the nearly 29 years District Fire Chief Greg Potter has served with Cincinnati Fire, he says loss never gets less painful. He says the bond between firefighters is somewhere between friendship and family. That's why what happened that day led to key changes in firefighting strategy. There's an internal and external review done on every line-of-duty death. The lessons from this one include understanding the signs of a flashover, the amount and type of equipment sent on runs, and the rapid assist team dispatched immediately instead of waiting for the fire to be confirmed. Potter says that wouldn't have saved Armstrong, but it could save others in the future.
We have a recruit class of 41 in today. Our training staff took them out in front of the building at the exact time that Oscar died, showed them the building and explained to them what happened, and that this is why we do so much training, is to prevent these accidents from happening. We strive to get better.
District Chief tells me this is always a tough time of year for firefighters throughout Hamilton County. In just 5 days, they'll honor the life and legacy of Darryl Gordon. Reporting at Engine 9, Kristen Swilley, 9 on Your Side.
I remember the death of Oscar Armstrong like it was yesterday. I remember it was the first time I saw Sycamore and Mason and other fire departments in Avondale doing runs for them while they were funeralizing him. I just started a chaplaincy under then Chief Wright. One of the things that was shared in that story, there are some things, some dangers in a fire. Explain to me a little bit about, a little more in depth, how you train to look out for flashovers. What are they in on the level of threat threat level, where does that place?
On a range from 1 to 20 is 40.
Mm.
Yeah, that's serious. Everything in the room ignites.
Wow.
That's a flashover. So
Wow.
it's a get out situation. Um, I have never, me personally, I have never experienced a flashover in person, outside of training. But that's just the simulation of a flashover. I don't ever want to be in that situation. Watching they in drill school, they showed us the Oscar story. Of course, that's like one of the, I think that's like one of the, probably like one of the worst, I'd say one of the worst parts of drill school, but it gives you a perspective of what can happen in this job. I remember when they showed us the Oscar story in drill school, and I was questioning my career. Like, man, do I really want to do this? Like, I really want to take this risk of not being able to go home to my family, see my mom, see my brothers, see my wife at the time. Like, it's really you come to a red pill, blue pill type situation when you hear about a flashover, and knowing that, oh man, that could possibly happen to me, man. Do I really want to take that risk? So, but yeah, flashover is very serious, very, very serious. And all right, but we train, and since Oscar has happened, they emphasize a lot on, flashovers, and not going in with a dry line and things of that nature. Just basically doing anything to prevent you being caught in the same situation that he was caught in.
Well, yeah, Oscar, that was one situation of death. But here is a story of the most recent.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. Help me embrace a little child before it is too late, or save an older person from the horror of that fate.
Darryl gave his life so that others may live. He gave his life to the community, and he gave his all in everything that he did.
Darryl Gordon, a 54-year-old Cincinnati firefighter and FAO, who died in the line of duty. A life given to save others.
I knew him for over 30 years. He was a genuine, warm, kind, considerate person.
I want to say thank you so much for your continued support.
In Glendale, the mayor, the Cincinnati fire chief, the union president, and others presenting this, a plaque dedicated to him at Town Hall. His family grateful.
It really brightens my day to see something like this. I drive down this road my whole life, going to Princeton, where I went to school. This street on Glendale, it's been a part of my life. And every time I go through here, I'm never going to be the same seeing that plaque, knowing the impact he had in this community.
A community recognizing the lifelong efforts of a man who will be honored at Glendale City Hall forever.
That was, I had the opportunity as a chaplain to participate from start to finish at St. Peter, and then the final resting place. And then on the year anniversary, I was called to participate in the memorial for Brother Gordon at the place where he lost his life. Details about that death. How are the details of that death? How does that affect you? And you can share a little bit in terms of just being careful.
Well, one, that was, now I told you about the Oscar situation. That was in drill school. When Darryl died, I had literally just graduated. I had to stay a little bit longer because I was I was having trouble passing the EMT test, and I had just got out that February. He died March. So that was like one of my first experiences being out on the fire department at a fire. And, you know, you're hearing a Mayday, and I'm just like, do I really want to do this? Like, man, I just got done with drill school. Do I really want to do this? But being careful. They another thing, you know, when stuff like that happens, our department is really big on, okay, we're going to talk about it. We're going to train. We're going to train so that nothing like this happens ever again. We don't want this to happen again. So I commend my department for always, you know, like I said, it's an unfortunate thing that somebody lost their life, but it is definitely a lesson to be taught from it. And they definitely drilled in our heads about, you know, searching and going into a swinging door, a door that swings out versus a door that swings in. So they harped on us about that, and you know, we trained on it, and that's still something that they still get on us about get on us about to this day about training. So that's really a key point in our training, I should say.
Wow. Dr. Moss, when you hear and you see these clips of these heroic men, and then you hear Craig in just terms of just what he has seen and what other fighters have saw, what words would you say to those that will watch and are watching in order to keep their mental state in a good place where they can continue to serve?
You know, of course, you know, seeking help when you first notice that things are different in how you feel and how you're thinking, how you're sleeping and eating. When you first notice changes with that, you know, many people can start with their primary care physician, and they may be able to refer them on, or they may be able to go directly to a mental health professional. But when you first start seeing changes, you know, do something to be proactive with that. And, you know, as he mentioned, when he's away from work, you know, he's away from work. And for some people, you know, as first responders, sometimes it's difficult for them to get away from work. You know, they stay in touch with what's going on at the firehouse, or they stay in touch with what's going on in the emergency room, you know, even when they're not on shift. But when you're away from it, allow for your brain to kind of decompress. You know, he also mentioned that he's involved in activities, hopefully activities with other people. We talked about bowling. So stay connected with other people so that they can continue to pour into you, but they also can be aware when they see changes in your behavior to make sure that you're noted and that you can also get that looked into. And then the physical exercise. You know, our brain likes the physical exercise and proper sleep. And that's a way that we can replenish the brain and we can rest the brain so it can take on the task for the next day. So those are some of the things that I would share.
Craig, I want to thank you for being with us tonight. I want to thank you for your transparency, your realness, and your willingness to let us take a glance into the life of a first responder. Our continued prayer for you is that God will continue to cover you, man, and to keep you safe. So I know that personally you've dealt with loss, but at the same time you've continued to push, man, and that's a great testament to those in your life, man.
I appreciate
who've had some part in shaping you, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah. To our viewers, we want to thank you for sharing your evening with us. And as always, we want to encourage you as we prepare to leave you this evening to feel better, become better, and live better. Good night, everyone.